If you've ever felt like your editing style is all over the place, or like everyone else has a signature look while you're just guessing, you're not alone. A lot of photographers think style is all about filters and presets, but that's not the whole story. In fact, your editing style has less to do with what tools you use and more to do with how you see the world. Today, we're going to clear up the confusion, take the pressure off, and talk about what really shapes a strong editing style and how to start making it your own. There's a myth that trips up almost every new photographer I've ever worked with, and it's this idea that your editing style is basically just which filter or preset you use. You scroll through Instagram or Pinterest, see someone's beautiful, cohesive feed, and think, if I just had that preset, my photos would look like that too. It feels like editing style is this one-click thing, a secret recipe you haven't unlocked yet. But here's the truth. Real editing style has almost nothing to do with filters and everything to do with how you see the world. You don't find style by chasing presets. You build it by paying attention to your instincts. When you start looking for your editing style, it's easy to get overwhelmed. There's so much content out there telling you that the key is this exact preset, this LUT, this tutorial. And those things can absolutely help you learn, but they can also lead you in circles if you're using them without understanding why they work. A preset might look great on someone else's image, but when you apply it to yours, it falls flat, or it completely changes the mood of your image. And suddenly, you're in this cycle of tweaking and adjusting and feeling frustrated because the result doesn't feel like you. That's because editing style isn't a product, it's a process. It's not something you download, it's something you develop. It's worth repeating. Editing style is not a one-click solution. It's a language. It's a way you communicate mood, emotion, and storytelling through visual choices. And just like language, it's something you refine over time. You're not supposed to have it all figured out right away. You're supposed to experiment, reflect, and evolve. That's how it grows. And when it's built on intention and consistency, rather than what's trending this month, it becomes something deeply rooted in your work, something recognizable, something you can trust to guide you, not just for one session, but across your entire portfolio. One of the first things that holds people back is the idea that there's some perfect preset out there that will solve everything. I've seen it so many times, photographers who buy 10, 12 different preset packs, thinking the next one will finally make their photos look the way they want. And for a while, maybe it works. But then something shifts, or you shoot in different light, and suddenly that preset doesn't hit the same way. That's because presets are tools, not solutions. They're shortcuts that only work when you already know where you're going. If you're not clear on your destination, no preset will get you there. Another trap is believing you have to mimic a popular style to be successful. It's understandable. When all the big-name photographers are working in a light and airy style or dark and moody palette, it's easy to think that's what people want. But copying someone else's look without understanding it doesn't lead to confidence. It leads to burnout. If you're constantly trying to fit yourself into someone else's aesthetic box, your work will feel disjointed. And more importantly, it'll never feel like yours. Clients don't hire you because you match a trend. They hire you because your work is consistent, thoughtful, and aligned with your own voice. If you show up confidently with a clear visual identity, the right clients will find you. You don't need to appeal to everyone. You just need to connect with the people who resonate with your style. Then there's the idea that editing style is something you find, like it's hiding out there somewhere waiting for you to discover it. But the truth is, it's not something external. It's something you develop by doing the work. Every time you sit down to edit, every time you make a decision about tone or contrast or color, you're shaping your style. It comes from repetition, from noticing patterns in your preferences, from trying something and realizing it doesn't quite fit, and then trying again. Your style doesn't arrive in a flash of clarity. It shows up quietly, in your habits and instincts, and only becomes visible when you step back and look at your work as a whole. So what is editing style really? It's your consistent visual language. It's how your work feels, not just how it looks. It's your tonal preferences. Do you gravitate toward warm and golden or cool and clean? It's how you handle color. Do you desaturate greens, boost reds and skin tones, lean into earthy neutrals or soft pastels? It's how you treat light. Do you let highlights blow out a bit for glow or keep things perfectly controlled? It's even in the details of your workflow. How much contrast you add, how much clarity, how you treat shadows and blacks. These choices form a pattern. That pattern becomes your voice. And here's the thing. Most people can't articulate what they love about an editing style. They just feel it. They see a photo, and it resonates with them. Your style isn't there to impress. It's there to connect. It tells your audience, this is how I see the world. And when your audience feels aligned with that perspective, that's when trust is built. That's when people book you, refer you, and come back again. Your editing style becomes your signature, not because it's flashy, but because it's yours. If you're wondering how to start building your style, begin by identifying your visual values. Think of these as your editing compass, the things you come back to session after session. They guide your decisions and give your work a sense of identity, even when your shooting conditions or subject matter change. You can start identifying them by pulling together 10 photos you absolutely love. They can be yours or someone else's. Lay them out side by side. What do they have in common? Are they warm or cool? Do they feel cinematic or clean? Are the shadows deep or lifted? Are the skin tones golden, neutral, or slightly pink? But don't just look. Ask why. Why do you love each image? What's the emotional pull? Is it nostalgic, calm, dramatic, cozy? Identifying what draws you in helps you uncover your deeper preferences. And once you start recognizing those patterns, they'll become your editing anchors, the choices you can return to again and again when you're not sure which direction to go. You'll also want to align your shooting style with your editing style. So many photographers try to fix everything in post, but the reality is your style starts before you ever open Lightroom. The time of day you shoot, the way you expose, your lens choice, all of it influences the final look. If you love soft, glowy warmth, you'll get better results by shooting at golden hour with intentional backlight. If you love crisp whites and editorial tones, your light source and scene choice need to match that. Editing doesn't create style out of thin air. It enhances what's already there. When your shooting choices align with your visual values, your editing becomes faster, easier, and more cohesive. Experimentation is a huge part of this journey, but it doesn't have to feel chaotic. One of my favorite exercises is creating a testing collection in Lightroom, just a space to play. No client work, no pressure. Pull in some of your raw files and try different edits, but give yourself limits. Maybe 3 versions max of the same photo, any more, and you risk falling into decision fatigue. Label each version with descriptive names. Not just copy 1 or test 2, but things like bold contrast, film-inspired, or matte and moody. This helps your brain track what's working and what's not. And after you've made a few versions, ask not just which ones look good, but which ones felt good to edit, which ones felt natural to create, which ones felt like you were fighting the image the whole time. That kind of self-reflection is often more valuable than the edit itself. You're not just editing for aesthetics. You're editing to communicate. When the process feels aligned, your style starts to reveal itself more clearly. One of the best things you can do to understand your growth is to go back and re-edit old work. Not to judge it, but to study it. Revisit a session from 6 months ago and re-edit a few of the images with what you know now. What choices do you make differently? What stays the same? Do you still like the way you edited back then? Growth often feels invisible in the moment, but when you look back and compare, you'll see just how far you've come. And that reflection, that curiosity, is part of building style too. Once you start noticing patterns in your editing preferences and aligning your shooting with your vision, something really exciting happens. You begin to build consistency without forcing it. And that consistency doesn't have to mean that every gallery looks identical. It simply means that your images carry a shared energy, a sense of trust that the viewer can feel. Whether it's a soft newborn session or a moody brand shoot, the thread that ties your work together becomes clearer. It's not about locking yourself into a box. It's about choosing to stay rooted in what feels true. The trick is to simplify your decisions. Most inconsistency happens when we're overwhelmed by too many choices. You sit down to edit, and there are 20 sliders, 6 versions of the same image, 5 presets you kind of like but haven't committed to, and suddenly you're 2 hours in and everything feels disjointed. When you reduce the number of variables, you actually free up more creative clarity. That's where consistency starts to take shape, not by narrowing your creativity, but by narrowing your distractions. One of the most helpful ways to create consistency is by sticking to one editing base for a while. That could be a preset you've created yourself or a set of manual adjustments you return to for every session. Use it as your launch point, not as a rigid formula, but as a way to ground your process. Start with that base, then adjust depending on the session's lighting, tones, or story. When you do that over time, your work begins to feel coherent without feeling cookie cutter. You've created visual harmony, and that gives your portfolio and your brand a strong identity. White balance is another key element of style that's often underestimated. If you're constantly shifting between cool and warm from one session to the next without a clear reason, your work might feel inconsistent, even if the edits themselves are technically strong. So start noticing what white balance you gravitate toward. Do you prefer warm golden tones by default? Are you drawn to clean neutrals with soft contrast? Once you identify your preference, start applying it intentionally across your sessions. It doesn't mean you can't adapt to the mood of each shoot, but you'll start to notice how much control you actually have over the emotional tone of your gallery just by staying consistent with color temperature. It can also help to build a repeatable editing checklist. This might sound like overkill, but it's a great way to train your brain to make decisions in the same order every time. And when you edit in a consistent sequence, you develop more control over your final look. A simple list might look something like adjust exposure, set white balance, add subtle contrast, check the tone curve, tone skin tones, check crop and alignment, then final tweaks. By following a loose system, you reduce second guessing and start editing with intention instead of reaction. You don't have to get it perfect. You just need to show up the same way each time, and that rhythm will start to shape your style naturally. I want to pause here and share a bit of my own journey, because I think it helps to hear that no one starts out with a perfectly polished editing voice. When I first got into photography, I edited every session differently. Some images were bright and crisp, others were dark and moody. Some had this odd green tint because I was trying to copy a Tumblr look I'd seen online. I didn't know what I liked. I only knew I didn't feel confident. So I kept trying different things, thinking that if I just found the right formula, everything would click into place. But it didn't. What finally changed things for me wasn't gear. It wasn't some magical preset. It was sitting down with a year's worth of work and asking, what do all my favorite images have in common? And that question changed everything. Because once I looked closely, I saw that the photos I loved weren't necessarily the most perfect ones. They were the ones that felt grounded, warm, honest, soft, but not flat. The color was rich, but not overwhelming. They felt calm. They felt real. That was my style. It was already there. I just hadn't noticed it yet, and that's what I want for you. You already have the pieces. Your editing style is in your choices. It's just waiting for you to recognize them. Of course, editing style isn't just technical, it's also deeply tied to mindset. And this is where a lot of photographers get stuck. Not because they're doing something wrong, but because they're telling themselves stories that hold them back. So let me share a few mindset shifts that helped me move through that stuck place. First, you are not behind. I know it's easy to look at other photographers and feel like everyone else has their editing perfectly dialed in while you're still fumbling with sliders. But most of those photographers you admire, they got there by experimenting, by making mistakes, and by editing thousands of images over time. They didn't find their style overnight. They built it. So if you're still finding your footing, that's not failure, that's the process. Let yourself evolve. Second, style comes from consistency, not complexity. You don't need 14 editing tools and 27 presets to create something beautiful. In fact, more tools often create more confusion. Clarity comes from simplifying. Focus on a few core editing moves that feel aligned with your taste and build from there. You'll be amazed how much more powerful your work becomes when you're not trying to do too much. Think of it like music. Some of the most iconic songs in history are built on just 3 or 4 chords. The power comes from intention, not complexity. And third, your photos don't need to impress everyone. Not every image is going to be a viral hit or win awards. But if your work resonates with the people who matter, your clients, your audience, your community, that's enough. Your style isn't supposed to be universal. It's supposed to be personal. When you stop trying to please the algorithm and start editing in a way that speaks to your values, your work becomes more magnetic to the people it's meant for. Now, if all of this sounds inspiring but also a little overwhelming, here's your simple next step. Pick one session, just one, and edit it with clarity. Before you touch a preset or start moving sliders, look at the images and ask, what does this moment feel like? Is it joyful, quiet, dramatic, warm? Then ask yourself, what tones support that feeling? What kind of contrast or color treatment enhances that emotion without overpowering it? What do you want the viewer to notice first? Let those answers guide your edit. If you already use a preset, try tweaking it intentionally. Adjust the tone curve, try warming or cooling the shadows. Shift one color channel and see how the mood changes. You don't need to overhaul everything. You just need to experiment with more intention. And when you land on something that feels really good, something that looks and feels like you, save it, name it, use it again. That's how style starts to take root. And don't forget to come back to your work after some time has passed. Revisit old galleries. Edit them again with fresh eyes. Notice what you've grown out of and what you still love. Those revisits are rich with insight. They show you where your instincts are sharpening. They show you what matters most. The last thing I'll leave you with is this. Your style is already unfolding. Every time you choose clarity over chaos, every time you shoot with intention, every time you trust your taste, you're shaping something that's completely yours. You don't need to chase a look. You need to pay attention to your own voice. Because your style, it's already in your work. You just have to slow down and listen for it. If you take one thing from all of this, let it be this. Your editing style isn't something you have to chase or force. It's already taking shape every time you shoot with intention and make choices that feel true to you. The more you lean into what you love, without comparing, without second guessing, the clearer your style becomes. So keep experimenting, keep reflecting, and most of all, keep editing with purpose. Your voice is already there, you're just learning how to trust it.